I'm gonna be completely honest. For the longest time, I thought that slow cookers were a mostly useless extra appliance. And as luck would have it, about 5 years ago, I was given this slow cooker by Crock-Pot, completely free, to develop some recipes for them. And from that point, I put this appliance through its paces. I made soups and stews and stocks. I even tried steaming desserts and cooking things sous vide. I tried everything to make this thing as useful as possible. So after 5 years and a ton of extensive testing, would I buy this again, or is this completely useless? Let's find out. Let's start by talking about what I use this machine for the most on a regular basis, and that is making incredible stock very easily. I used to use a nice big stock pot on my stove, but that requires constant attention to adjust the heat and manage the levels of water inside of it. It's just a little bit of extra work. With the slow cooker, all I need to do is add my bones, add plenty of hot water, put the lid on, set the timer, and just walk away for several hours. This makes the process incredibly hands-off, and all I really need to do is show up once the timer goes off, or even a little bit later, because of the keep warm function, and all I need to do then is strain out my stock. If we're just judging this on this technique alone, this is an excellent appliance. But does it keep up with actual meal prep? Now, as the name suggests, this thing is actually great at slow cooking different kinds of meats. I've done whole pieces of meat for like a pulled pork barbecue situation. But I've also piled this thing with tons of bolognese sauce, like enough to last me a full year kind of bolognese. The thick ceramic walls of the container are incredible for holding onto heat and gently cooking these proteins over a long period of time until they're fall apart tender. Also, the loose fitting lid allows some steam to escape, so the liquid can reduce a little bit to concentrate the flavor ever so slightly. Even for vegetarian dishes, like a simple veggie stew or a nice pureed soup, this thing does take its time, but it manages to cook everything through and create really nice vegetarian dishes. Now, before I mentioned that this is capable of sous vide cooking, but there are some caveats. It can cook chicken and certain cuts of meats incredibly well, but since this machine only really has 2 heat settings and a keep warm setting, you are stuck sous videing things at some very, very specific temperatures. This, unfortunately, is the first of a handful of drawbacks. So, as far as other techniques that this machine is less than perfect at, I attempted making little steamed puddings, and while it did work, it required quite a bit of setup, a ton of foil, and gave middle-ish results. As far as the actual build quality, the bowl is nice and thick and sturdy, but it's also made of ceramic, and therefore it is breakable. This also does make it quite hard to pour and to clean comfortably. Also, a common problem that many slow cookers have is that the heat comes from the walls of the machine and enters your food very gently. So you can't really brown anything properly on the bottom, which means that if you do want to add additional flavor, you are going to need to sear off your proteins in another pan, if that's something you want to do. And even though the ceramic bowl does feel quite sturdy, the chassis itself without the bowl does feel quite flimsy and lightweight. Like, I use this machine maybe a few times a month, and the amount of dings and scrapes that are like hard to clean is just quite a lot. And now, I originally had some criticisms about the lid, because while it does allow some steam to escape, it's not enough to let any proper reduction take place. And because it's loose, I just don't trust this thing around my cats, so I typically set it up in a room that's not my kitchen, especially when I'm cooking chicken bones. They love the smell of this thing. Thankfully, the newer version of this model has a locking lid, so I'll let this drawback slide. And finally, whilst obviously you do not expect a slow cooker to be fast, it does take forever to come up to temperature. Now for my stock, I added boiling water instead of room temperature water, and my bones came straight from the oven. And this machine still took almost a full hour before I started seeing a gentle simmer. Now that we've discussed all of the pros and the cons, let's take a look at the final verdict. And we're back. So, we have discussed all of the best use cases as well as a lot of the drawbacks that this machine has, so it's time for a final verdict. Important question: would I recommend this particular Crock-Pot unit, and would I buy it again if it broke or went missing or something like that? And before I discuss that, I think there is one more clear advantage and benefit of this unit that I did not discuss at all, and that is just entertaining in general. What do I mean by that? The fact that this unit can keep an enormous amount of food warm over a long period of time means that it is so great for serving. I have filled this thing with soup for a New Year's Eve dinner that fed like 20-25 people as a first course. This was fantastic. I have cooked a hot pot inside of here where people are just dipping pieces of food inside. And it's a really wonderful little unit for that kind of thing. You want to have like a little buffet line and keep a large stew or soup or anything like that hot, and this thing has you covered. Is it bulky and clunky and without the ceramic, does it not feel particularly well made? Sure, but I feel like that's true of majority of slow cookers. Truth be told, I would buy this again in a heartbeat. This is super cheap, at least the version I've seen on Amazon is like $60 or so that's like super like reasonably priced. And I have a pantry, so even though this thing is super clunky and I would not keep it in my cupboard because I don't use it that often, the fact that even just for my like stock prep or for like a big pot of some sort of braise, I can put it in here and not really worry about it at all is huge for me. And because of that, I would definitely get this again. What I will say, if you are tight on space, you do not have the cupboard space for something like this, or you're looking for something that's a little bit more versatile that you can keep on your counter, Crock-Pot sent me another unit of their multi-cooker. I'm not going to discuss this here, but you can click one of these videos depending on when you're watching this, and I will give you my full review on what is arguably a similarly sized and potentially much more capable machine. If you'd like to take a closer look at these products, there's some information as well as affiliate links inside of the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Bye, 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 bye. We meet again, old friend.